Abilities Virtual Family Forum. Before we begin tonight's presentation, we will have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience. If you need Spanish interpretation and/or closed captioning, click the globe icon at the bottom of your screen for the Spanish language and closed captioning.
Buenas noches y gracias por asistir a esta junta. Si usted necesita escuchar esta junta en español, por favor, mire en la parte baja de la pantalla y vea el icono de un globo. Presione ese icono y usted va a poder seleccionar el español. Le repito, para poder escuchar esta junta interpretada en español, por favor, vea el icono que usted va a ver dentro de poco del globo, presiónelo y seleccione español para poder escuchar esta junta. Muchas gracias.
Good evening, MPS parents and families. Welcome to our 5th annual Celebrating Abilities Special Education Family Forum. I am Meredith Welch, and I will serve as the host for the virtual session tonight. While this is our 5th year presenting Celebrating Abilities, it is our first year hosting a virtual event, and we're so grateful and excited to have you join us. We've come together tonight because we know how important your child's education is to you. Celebrating Abilities is about ensuring that all of our Milwaukee Public Schools students with special education needs will have access to the resources that they need. Tonight kicks off our week-long event. Each night, we will have a presentation for you that is focused on valuable special education resources that are available in our district as well as in our community. We look forward to you joining us every night this week to learn about topics, as well as various organizations and services that they offer that can be useful to help your child. Here are the topics for each night. Tonight, we will learn about how to troubleshoot on various platforms, as well as assistive technology and how that can support virtual learning. On Tuesday, we will review what an Individualized Education Program, or IEP, means and how it can structure education and academic services. On Wednesday, we will discuss ways to cope with stress and discover strategies to empower families to create a positive learning environment. On Thursday, we'll get information on the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program and its benefits. And finally, on Friday, it's celebration time. Come back and join us. We hope that we know that we're going to have a lot of fun. So we want you to be here with us on Friday evening. Once again, we thank you for joining us tonight, and we hope that you'll join us every night this week. And in fact, feel free to invite other MPS families to join us. We know that as you watch the presentations, some questions may come up. So please place those questions in the chat because we'll have some time to answer questions after the presentation. Please know that if your question is not answered during the session tonight, we will be compiling the questions from the chat, and you will find the answers to your questions on an MPS Family Engagement webpage at mpsmke.com/family forum. At that same website, a recording of each session will be available. So we invite you to sit back, listen, and be ready to engage in our chat feature. As we move forward towards tonight's main presentation, we want you to know that all of our work in Milwaukee Public Schools revolves around our 5 priorities for success. With that in mind, our focus in planning for this week's events was centered around these areas: increasing academic achievement and accountability, improving district and school culture, and strengthening our community communication and collaboration. We appreciate you and applaud you for all that you do as parents, guardians, and caretakers in partnership with our district to help our students be successful. Now we will hear a message from Chief of School Administration, Dr. Catrice Cotton.
want to thank you for attending the 5th annual Celebrating Abilities Family Forum. I'm excited to celebrate the abilities of all children and connect families to community resources. Please check out the MPS homepage where you can read about some MPS alumni and their accomplishments. I am also a proud graduate of Harold S. Vinson High School, and my 2 children graduated from Rufus King International High School here in MPS. I credit the education that I received as an MPS student, along with the love and support of my family, in getting me here today. As a graduate, I've returned to serve in the district and now advocate for a quality education for all of the students in Milwaukee Public Schools. In MPS, we value the diversity and the strength of our special education community and families. Student achievement is our number one goal. When it comes to education, the role of the family is very important. Families are the cheerleaders when students celebrate a victory. You are the proofreaders when an assignment is due, and you are the comforter when your student needs a hug. The support you provide to your student is essential to their success, and we appreciate serving as partners in your child's educational journey. Even during school building closures and during virtual learning, school leaders continue to inform and involve parents in their students' education. You are important to MPS. So, how can we help you? We want to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. So, please complete the survey at the end of each of your sessions. Your input is valuable in creating a better MPS for your child and the children of the future. Some of you may receive a mailing or an email in the next week or two asking for your input about MPS family engagement. This is another way to communicate with us. Remember, students and schools succeed when families are a part of the process. We appreciate you for being here, and please enjoy this week's events. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. Again, just a couple of reminders for you. Interpretation services and closed caption can be accessed by clicking on the globe at the bottom of your screen. Also, feel free to add any questions that you have after listening to the presentation in our chat. Finally, be sure to stick around after tonight's presentation for more important messages. And now for our presentation. Our presenters tonight are Olivia Aberhart from Milwaukee Public Schools Technology Department and Eric McGinley from Assistive Technology and MPS. Olivia?
I work in the Technology Support Center, and we get a lot of calls from students and parents. So I thought it'd be nice to share a lot of the topics, the top 5 topics that we get from students and parents. And so I created a PowerPoint, and I'm going to go ahead and share and discuss some of the things that we get as some of our top calls. Give me just a moment. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. And so some of the top 5 issues I'm going to discuss today are Google Meets, students having no internet, multiple students in one household with no internet, computer issues with personal computers, non-MPS devices, and email issues. So a lot of the calls we get are about Google Meets. And if Google Meets does not load properly, or you get an error message, page does not load, or maybe it says loading, what we found out is that if you hit the refresh button on the keyboard, this is if you're using a Chromebook, and if you hit that refresh button, whatever message you get, and the page should reload, and you should be able to access the Google Meet. So let's say if you hit it one time, it doesn't work, you may have to hit it again. That's pretty much for any message. If you get a camera message, camera not working, page not working, microphone not working, the refresh button on the laptop is something that we do recommend you hit. And it looks like a letter C with an arrow on the top of it. That's what I pretty much tell all of the people who call in. It's above the number 4 on the keyboard. The next thing I like to discuss is no internet. We get a lot of issues with internet. Some users have their own internet. They use like Spectrum or Time Warner. The first thing you do when you have no internet is to close the browser. Just close it out and then go back into the page and try to reconnect to whatever you were trying to do, whether you're trying to, do a Google Doc or go to a Google Meet. If that doesn't work, then we recommend you restart the Chromebook or whatever computer you're using and then try to connect again. To connect, you may have to click on the Wi-Fi symbol on the bottom of the screen. This is if you're using a Chromebook, usually it's in the right-hand corner by the time clock. So you click on it, then you click on your network. You may want to turn the Wi-Fi off. You may want to turn it on again. And once you do that, you're going to reconnect, and that should reestablish your connection to the internet. And it may not solve all internet issues, but this is typically what resolves most internet issues on the calls that we get. The next thing is some people have the MPS hotspots, and there's a picture of one of the brands called Kajit hotspots that we have out there. So if the MPS hotspot is not working, the first thing we recommend to do is similar to what is being done at the top, is to click on that Wi-Fi symbol, disconnect and reconnect. Let's say if that doesn't work, then the next thing to do is just power off the hotspot, power it back on, wait 5 seconds for it to load. And then the next thing you would want to do is also restart the Chromebook or laptop or whatever device that you're using. And if that doesn't work, we recommend that you restart all devices in your home, including your router, and then restart the laptop. So we have certain instances where parents call in, students call in, and they have multiple students in the home. Some of the students' laptops are working, some of them are not. And for instance, let's say they're using a Chromebook, and a parent would say, hey, 2 of my students, my children, their Chromebooks are working, but one isn't. I think it's an issue with the Chromebook. What could we do? Well, these issues does occur, and it doesn't mean that there's an issue with the Chromebook. A lot of times it's just an issue with it connecting to the network, and we just have to do some troubleshooting to get that one Chromebook connected to the internet. So the first thing we should do is just, hey, turn off the Wi-Fi, turn it right back on. If that doesn't work, then you want to restart the laptop. And disconnecting and reconnecting to the Wi-Fi is definitely, these aren't necessarily in any particular order. The first step would be restart the laptop. The second step, disconnect. If you do one or the other, it doesn't matter. Those go hand in hand. But the most important thing is to restart your modem. Let's say you restarted your laptop, you disconnected and reconnected to the Wi-Fi connection, and the student still can't connect to the internet. The next step is to restart your modem. And some people say, well, I have 2 devices that are working. I don't want to restart my modem. That's going to reset everything. And you may not want to do it at that moment, but that is definitely a crucial step in, refreshing your Wi-Fi connection in your home. And it's something that we do recommend. And also you want to take a look at the modem. If there are any red or yellow lights on the modem, you may want to contact your internet service provider to make sure there's not an outage in your home. And this is definitely a major call volume that we get, is with, some students can connect and some students can't. So the next thing I like to talk about is some students have their own PC that they use at home, a desktop or a laptop. And there's a different sign-in process when you're using a personal PC. The NPS Chromebooks automatically go to the Clever page, and you just type in the S number and the password. You don't have to type in the entire email address. However, when a student is using their personal device, more than likely, they're going to have to type in their entire email address. So they would go to the NPS homepage, which is nps.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. They would click on the Students tab, and then they would click on the Student Toolbox. And once they click on Student Toolbox, that would take them to the Clever page. And then at that point, the student would only have to type in their S number. However, sometimes, let's say a student has a Chromebook and it's not an NPS device, and the initial sign-in page on a Chromebook is you type in your email and you type in your password. At that point, the student would have to type in the entire email. So it'd be their S number at milwaukee.k12.wi.us. And there are a couple of other instances. If a student goes directly to google.com and they try to sign in, at that point, they would also have to sign in with their entire email address. And so those are 2 important points. If a student uses their personal PC to go to the NPS homepage, and if they have a personal Chromebook, then they would want to type in their entire email address. The last thing I'd like to talk about as far as our top 5 high call volume calls are student emails. A lot of times parents and students, they just don't know where to go to check their email. And we do use a lot of Google products. However, our email is through Office 365, and student email is only accessible through the student email link. So the student would go to the NPS homepage and they would click on students, and then they would click on student email. And that would take them to the student Office 365 homepage. And then they would type in their S number, and then they would type in their password, just like they were logging into an NPS Chromebook. And that's how the student would access their student email. And two useful links. We get a lot of calls. Some people, they're on a tablet or a non-NPS device and they don't know what the NPS homepage is. So an important thing is, I just listed here, is the NPS homepage, which is nps.milwaukee.k12.wi.us. And there, the student would be able to access the student toolbox for Clever and also their student email if they click on the Students tab. And another important link is the parent page. It's mynps.org. And when you go to that site, it has lots of information. It has information about links to student curriculum, and it has all the information of everything I've spoken about today: how to access the student toolbox, how to check student email, how to get information on the parent portal. And those are two links I definitely think would be very useful to parents and also students. And that is the end of my presentation today. And thank you all.
Thank you, Olivia. Again, families, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in our chat and we will make sure that we answer those questions. Again, if not this evening, you will see all answers compiled on the website. And now for Mr. Eric McGinley from Assistive Technology.
Hello, everyone. So grateful to be here. I'm also going to be sharing my screen, and I'm going to talk a little bit about assistive technology. The name itself is a little tricky because it sounds like I'm paired up with our last speaker, Olivia, and heavy into tech. And you're going to find that actually sometimes we have some solutions that are considered no tech. So we'll get right into it. Let me see if I can share here. As we get going, as I know we had talked earlier, we talked about these 5 priorities of success. It's a great way for us to kind of keep ourselves grounded and making sure we're staying accountable. I just want to again say how grateful I am to be a part of this. I feel very honored to be presenting to all of the families that are watching today. I think you're really incredible in your advocacy, and I'm hopefully able to add to that as well with some information. My name is Eric McGinley from Assistive Technology. There's a number of us in our department, and if anything that I say today sounds interesting or you need some more information, please have your teachers, your students, your child's teachers reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help in more detail if we can. Let's just start with what is assistive technology. So there's a kind of a technical definition, and that is that assistive technology is any device or support that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with a disability. Another way to sometimes think about this is there are certain situations and environments that place a challenge to your child, and so we want to make sure that we're kind of evening that up and providing things so that your child has the best and most successful education that they can have. As I stated earlier, assistive technology ranges from low-tech options to some high-tech options as well, but there's even some no-tech things. So our title is a little funny in that way, but what we're really looking for is just increasing access. So we want to make sure that if there are any barriers or access needs, and there's a support that can help with that, that we're offering it as a district. So sometimes we might think about where the learning materials themselves need to be changed so that the student can access the material, the content that's being taught. It may be an issue with the actual learning environment, and there may be some supports or tools that we could use so that the student can access the environment. And it may also be that there are some content and concepts that need to be adjusted or modified so that the student has access to the information and understanding of it. AT is honestly a very, very broad range of supports because there is a very broad range of students' needs. But by its very nature, assistive technology is going to look at these needs on a case-by-case basis. Today, I'm going to go over a sampling of some supports, mostly in different subject areas. But really, realistically, there is no way to cover all the things that assistive technology would fall under because it's just too broad. So as we look at some of the supports, you may find some that you know your child is already using or that you think might be good for your child. And just realize that as you go forward, we want to make sure we're looking at each individual case and then trying to determine what needs, if any, are best available. I also want to say outright to any families who don't know that in every single IEP meeting that your child has, there needs to be a discussion about assistive technology. That really just entails that we're considering the need for assistive technology. And there's a little box that is checked. If there's no needs that are needed, then it's yes, we considered it, but none was needed. But it does need to be brought up at every meeting, and that includes every year that you have it. So what I like about that point is that it's a great opportunity for the whole team, including families, to look at a child's specific needs and ask, is there something that can be added to support this need? And if there is an identified support, is it essential to the student, either to increase the physical access in the learning environment, to access the learning materials, or even to access the conceptual understanding and appropriate processing of the learning content? And think about this too. At each year, your child is growing, new developments are happening, they're progressing, other changes may be occurring. It's very important that we keep addressing the need and determining if supports are available. Not to mention, supports themselves change and they evolve. So we want to always kind of be up to date. And so it's very important that this discussion happens each year or each meeting. Again, like I said, there is a large range of supports because there is a large range of possible needs. So I will not be able to address every single one, but we're just going to kind of dabble a little to kind of get a sense of what assistive technology is. With that, I'd also like to say what assistive technology is not. Assistive technology is not cheating. Sometimes there are people who think of these extra supports as like, oh, this child is getting extra things that they don't need, that other people don't have, so why should my child get them? Well, we want to make sure that if it's an essential need, the children are getting what they need. This next cartoon sort of illustrates that point. Many of you may have even seen this panel. The first panel of this cartoon has some individuals trying to watch a baseball game over a fence. And there are 3 crates that they get to stand on. Each person gets 1 crate to stand on. The first individual towers over the fence. Even though he has a box, he's well over the viewing of the fence and he can see the game just fine. The second individual can just barely see over the fence because he's on his crate. And the third individual is so small that even with 1 crate, he's not able to see the game. So we have in this cartoon, every individual gets the same exact support, but as you can see, they're not able to access the game in the same way. One way to think about that then is to make sure that each individual gets what each individual needs. So in the second panel now, we see that the tall individual actually doesn't need any of the crates. The middle individual is still standing on 1, and now the small individual has 2, and all 3 can see the game. One final panel that sometimes gets added into this, which I really like, is just knocking down the fence entirely, and then everybody has access. So whether we're talking about specific AT needs that are individualized or for making some broad universal design changes for all students, we want to be working towards providing those supports that everybody needs. And like we said, it's not going to be everybody always gets the same thing. It's going to be, what does your child need to be successful, to be independent? So let's go a little bit deeper and we'll talk about some different supports. We'll go through and we'll talk about different subject areas, academic subject areas, and a few other areas. And I'll just mention a couple as we go, knowing again that there are a very broad range and lots of different possibilities. And the important thing is that you and your IEP team go over and talk about what the students' needs are and what possible supports could help, and if those supports are essential to the success and independence of your child. So as we look at math, which is this category, one of the most common math supports and AAT supports is one of those no-tech solutions. It's as simple as offering some graph paper. Graph paper can be a really great way for students to help organize their writing of numbers to keep place value in check. And so this is one of those things that it could be something that everybody is getting in the classroom, but if it is something that your child needs in order to be successful, we want to be able to list it outright on their IEP. Similar, there is number lines, and there's a lot of students that rely on this visual support as they're working with building number fluency and going through addition and subtraction problems, and it can be very helpful and very grounding for them to be able to look at the number line to go back and forth. There are physical manipulatives that again help provide some visual guidance, but also some tactile understanding, and those can be very helpful as a student learns new concepts or as they work to develop more fluency within those concepts. And there are some calculation supports. This particular image on the screen is that of the brand is called a Coinulator, and it has the pictures and the images of the money on the calculator to help support a student who may be needing some extra support when working with money. This calculator that's coming up is an audio calculator, and so as each key is hit on the calculator, a voice speaks out the key that was hit. So the student has some verbal audio recognition of what the keys were placed. That can be very helpful for a student who may be having trouble transposing numbers or putting different order of the numbers correctly. Another sort of low-tech option, or maybe even no-tech, is just providing some supports so that the student has a reference guide. All the way up to there's a program that some students are using because they have some fine motor and writing issues, and they're unable to write or type appropriately for the assignments that they're being asked to do. And this program allows them to speak the math problems in and have it typed out for them on the computer. So then they're still able to participate in the math activities that their class is doing, even though they're unable to write like most students are asked to. Speaking of writing, let's talk about a few of some writing supports that are sometimes available. It could be as simple as providing an appropriate grip on a writing utensil or an art utensil. Sometimes wide grips are more appropriate for students who have some finger dexterity issues, all the way up to different ways of helping increase the typical three-finger grasp on a writing surface. Some students benefit incredibly having an elevated writing surface, and again, having this in a student's IEP, then the team gets to know, well, we need to make sure that this sort of a device follows the student around or is always available for the student, or is this something that the student carries with them? There are a lot of note-taking supports for students who struggle with writing for a variety of reasons. Maybe, again, we're talking about the physical act of writing that is struggling for them. Maybe spelling itself is challenging. So it could be ranging from having a peer help take notes, having the teacher provide notes ahead of time, or putting in the IEP that they need something which is like in this picture, which is a recording pen, and helps record the audio of what's happening while the student is taking notes, so the student can reference back what was being said as they were writing in their notebook. Another option that some students benefit from is having extra pictures added into the text. So this can be both for them in a reading sense, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also to improve their writing. So it helps them understand the words that they want to choose, or reinforces the words that they're writing so that they have a reinforcement that they have the correct word that they're trying to choose. Reading supports also have a wide range. This first picture is of a magnifying bar. So a student that may have some visual needs could use this magnifying bar to make the text a little larger. But it also has the benefit of helping a student track along the text. Just like this next tool, which is a line reader, and helps sort of limit the viewing area of the student and helps them focus in on the text that they're just trying to read. This small tool can be very helpful for some students focusing and increasing their reading. Notice also this tool has a small color associated with it. Some students benefit from having color overlays or their materials printed in a different color because it helps relax their eyes and helps them focus a little bit more on the work that they need to be focusing on. The tool in this picture is called a reading pen, and it works as when it's dragged along the text, then it will actually try and read out the text digitally. So this is for physical text that you have in your hand, like a piece of paper or a book, and it helps to support the reading of it. And along with that, there are some tools that also just help limit the actual materials. So there's some tools that when students are looking at web pages, you can simplify some of the text. This particular tool, if a student clicked it, it would take them to another tab, and it would take most of the text with it, but it would simplify out that text. So it would make it a little bit easier to read for that student. This next one is called Rewordify, and it actually works where students input the text. So you would copy and paste it in, and then it takes a bunch of challenging words in that text and gives an alternative version that's a little bit easier to understand. One real common use of something like Rewordify is when looking at traditional literature, even like Shakespeare, where it's very challenging. The language is very challenging, and it'll take some of those challenging words and turn them into a little bit more modern and understanding concepts. So it's a little bit more easy to process. With a simple click, it goes back to the original text in case the teacher is asking for some specific vocabulary. One thing we didn't quite yet talk about is some other tools for reading text out loud, but don't worry, we'll get to that. Another big area of assistive technology is communication needs. So for students who may be struggling with different types of communication, and we'll go over a couple different ways that might look like. And again, this is a very broad range. So it could start as simple as adding visuals to any text that you have. Sometimes that's even as much as adding different text around the classroom or even in the house that has visuals associated with it. So we're just labeling things to build text awareness, but we're including visuals to help that understanding be communicated. It could also be that we're using visual options when we're presenting choices to a student or a child, so that child can then use the visuals to help guide the communication. They can either point to some of the choices that they want to make or use the visual images just to help solidify it in their mind. There are specific voice output devices that a lot of students use when they are not able to verbalize something with their own voice. Different things can be programmed into these devices. The one that's shown has a single recording. So when the button is pushed, one voice, a pre-recorded voice will speak out the message that was recorded in. This is a single recording. There are also many different options from 2 to 4. This is a picture of one that has 8 different choices that can be pre-recorded in. And some of the times as we get higher into these, like with this 8, the paper that has these 8 choices can be taken out and a different 8 can be slid in. So actually you have multiples of 8. All the way up to when we have multiple high-tech devices. So here's that big range. We went from just adding pictures to different pieces of paper and pasting it around our house, up to a device that has multiple words and different ways to build actual sentences. It's important to realize when talking about communication that if a student is just beginning, We would never start out with something as complicated with all these choices. It would be very overwhelming for anyone trying to learn how to use a different device for their voice. So we'd start way early on with the visuals and make sure there was a strong understanding and correlation for the student. Then as the student progresses and shows that they're ready for the next step, we'd slowly move up. Assistive technology also looks at organization and focus needs, because this can sometimes be the barrier that's keeping them from participating or being as successful as they need to in school. This can look like as simple as a visual timer, so just helping a student track and keep track of time or elapsed time. Some students and some children have a hard time understanding those concepts early, and if they were told you have 45 minutes, they may lose track of that time and not manage their time well. But given a visual representation of it, they may track their time a little bit better. It could also be that they just need a visual schedule, something to help them track their day, something to help them communicate what needs to be done or what they've already done so that they can keep track of it themselves. Speaking of reminders, sometimes it's as simple as making sure that there are built-in reminders so that the student can become more independent. Left to their own, they may not have their system that is able to help them remember different assignments that are coming up, but given some extra support in setting up reminders might be enough to get so that it's not another adult helping, but they can be more independent with the tools that are available. Some students really benefit from color coding their materials. So each different subject that they have might have a different color, and it helps them. So as they're organizing and picking up materials, they can quickly know which notebook they need to grab or which folder. And with a lot of the things that we've talked about in the last few slides, some of it is literally just opening up some cognitive space. So we're taking some of the weight away from all the different things that are happening in a child's life and trying to organize all the different things that are going on. And we're simplifying some of those things so that they're able to more focus on their academics and the learning expectations from their teachers. Right along with that is the idea of body and mind regulation. There are many students who really benefit from being able to keep their body moving. The picture that you see on this is a little sort of inflatable seat cushion that allows a student to kind of rock their core back and forth. And for some students, that's enough to be able to keep their mind much more focused and engaged. They're having their body move without being too distracting to the classroom situation, and they're able to still focus. A much more simple version of that is just taking 2 tennis balls and diagonally placing them on the legs of the chairs so that the chair wobbles just a little bit, a little inch on each side, probably not even, probably a half inch, just enough to wobble the chair just a little bit so the child gets that movement. And then for some students, that's enough to help them keep focused in their learning. I promised that I was going to come back to some other reading supports, and I would need to make sure and talk about Google Read and Write. Google Read and Write, you may have already heard of it. Your child may already be benefiting from it. The district purchases licenses for every single student. And here's where we're kind of going back to that idea with the cartoon of universal design. It is available to every single student. If your child is a child that benefits and it turns out that the supports in Read and Write are essential for your child, we want to make sure that that is listed as assistive technology in your child's IEP so that it is always available no matter where they are in the school building and the learning environment. It's not to say that anything special has to happen license-wise, because it's already there, it's already available. But now we get to say to every teacher that your child has or every learning environment that your child is, hey, remember, this is something that my child needs. So we want to make sure it's listed. So Google Read and Write, if you don't know, is a little purple puzzle piece. And it, like I said, all students, every single MPS student already has it. And so it's probably already up in the corner. It's a very tiny icon up in the top right of the computer screen on the Chrome computer screen, and it's already loaded for them. A simple click of this purple puzzle piece turns on their toolbar. Along with that is also a program called PDF Reader. It's another extension, but it never needs to be clicked on. You really are basically using the read and write tools. So what it means is we can use all the tools in read and write on PDFs. So we can have digital text read out to us aloud. We can use the microphone to do some voice typing. There's some translation options. There's some visual options. There's even the line readers that we saw back when we're looking at those magnifying bars and the colored line readers. Lots and lots of supports. So if there's, like I said, if we talked about something that you feel like may be important, have your child's teacher reach out to Assistive Technology, and we would love to go into more information. One more that I'd like to talk about in an online support is called Clever Badging. When a student opens up their Chromebook, it asks for them to type in their login. That's not an option for all students. It can be very challenging for some of our students and some of our children to type that in. So this can be a great way to have those students be able to log in. What it does is instead of having a type box to type in, the camera turns on and you just hold up this little QR code, which is individual for each student, and it will automatically log them into their Chromebook and into Clever. Please have your child's teacher reach out to us for more information if you need. I want to make sure that I leave enough time for us to have some conversation and some chats if we need to. So I'll leave it at that and just remind everybody that assistive technology is any device or support that is deemed essential for your child's success and independence and access. And it does come up at needs to come up at every single IEP meeting, and you as family members can remind team members, hey, let's make sure that we have discussed and considered assistive technology. Thank you all so much for all your advocacy and all your wonderful support. It is more clear in this virtual environment than ever how critical you are to the success of MPS. So thank you.
Eric, thank you so much for that presentation. So big thanks to you again and to Olivia for sharing that helpful information. So our goal for the week was to share information that is meaningful to our families. And in our planning process, we used the feedback from the families that joined us last year and completed surveys. So that feedback helped us to pick topics for this week. And so it's very important to us that we make this experience a good one for you. We can only do that with your feedback, of course. So each night after each presentation, you will be asked to complete a survey that will tell us what you thought about the evening's presentation. On Friday night, you will be asked to complete a survey to tell us what you thought about the week overall. Now, here's the exciting part. By completing that survey and including your contact information, you will be given the chance to win a free Celebrating Abilities t-shirt. You will find the link to the survey in the chat. Again, you must include your contact information, such as your email address or your phone number. And that's just so that we can contact you with instructions on how to claim your t-shirt. As always, we encourage you to make sure that you are in communication with your child's teacher, the school support staff, and administrators if you have any questions or concerns. We are all here to support you. So once again, please don't forget to complete the survey using the link provided in the chat. Before we close for the evening, we want to thank you again so much for joining us. We also want to say a big thank you to our event sponsors and to the planning committee. We hope to see you back here with us every night this week at 5:30 p.m. And again, feel free to invite other MPS families that you know would benefit from this information. Remember, you should use the same link that you used to access the presentation tonight to join us again each night this week. Before we close, I'm just looking at the chat and it looks like there was a question. that I want to make sure we answered. And so the question was, do we need a Google Doc account? It says to log in. You should not need a Google Doc account to log in. If you were provided a link, the same link that you used to log in this evening, that's the link that you should use to log in each night this week. Sign in, it says. Jeremy, are you on deck here to be able to, for the survey? Thank you for clarifying that. Mr. Hall, it's asking if they need to sign in.
So I double checked. You shouldn't have to sign in, but let me double check. Give us a couple seconds and get that straightened out.
I appreciate you asking that question because, again, your feedback is very important to us. We want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to be able to share their thoughts and questions with us this evening. Another question that came up in the chat, who should we contact to get the Google Read and Write to IEP?
May I answer?
Yes, please.
Oh, great question. And so let's just clarify two things. First, Google Read and Write is available with or without an IEP. Every single student has access to it regardless. It's already preloaded on student accounts. So just to put that in the back of your mind, for a child who does have an IEP and we want to make it that essential thing, it's really your team discussion. When AT comes up, the team hopefully is looking at what are the current needs of the student, what are they able to do and what are they not able to do? And then is there a tool in Read and Write that is able to help them through that tool, or that need, and help them get over that barrier, the access barrier? If the team is unaware of some of how the Read and Write tools work, and I'll just kind of secretly say this, that even if they have a good understanding, it's still okay to reach out to us because there's a lot of nuances with Read and Write. So have them please reach out to Assistive Technology. And that we're a department in MPS, so schools can quickly find us in the school directory. So your teacher can just reach out to Assistive Technology. I'm hopeful that a lot of teachers already are aware and already have a good sense of it, but we would love to also help. Oh, it looks like maybe another one here. I think this is probably me. What can we do for a child who may need a bigger screen, has vision issues, and MPS laptop is too small, even with the Zoom option? Another fantastic question, especially as we're talking about in this virtual environment, and we're so dependent on the visual limitations of the screen that's provided. That would be another one to reach out to Assistive Technology specifically. Sometimes there are school buildings that have some available through some library funds. So it could be that a larger screen is available through a library checkout, a MPS library checkout. But if your child has a vision included in their IEP, then they have a vision instructor, a special ed teacher who specializes in vision, and that person can work to provide that need for your child. There are also a couple other ways to do some Zooming options. So we may want to just look at if there's a different way to do some of the Zoom. But another fantastic question.
I just want to loop back around to the survey question. And Mr. Hall, do you want to address that?
So the link is open to all. Typically what happens is that you may have to use a different browser, and Chrome is a more user-friendly for Google Forms and document. So the person that is having a problem accessing it, if you could just leave your email address, and then I'll make sure you're able to access put it in the chat room, and I'll make sure that you can access the form.
Thank you. Another participant said his or her survey is completed. Thank you so very much. I thought there was one other question. Just want to make sure I'm not skipping over it. As a temporary sitter, how can I reach out for assistance? And I'm not exactly clear? Can you say a little bit more so we can try to answer your question? I see a couple of people who have completed the survey. This is great. Thank you so much. We had another question about not being able to join us from the very beginning, and if it'll be possible to still see the sessions. So yes, all of the sessions are going to be recorded and will be available at npsmke.com/family forum. You're welcome. Just another reminder, as our participants are completing the survey, to make sure that you are including your contact information so we can get you your free t-shirt.
Hi, Meredith.
Yes.
The person that you were asking about with the temporary sitter, they also put some additional information in the Q&A. I'm wondering if maybe not as a parent, they're trying to find out how to reach out. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but they had said tonight was an excellent start, but they're not sure where they should begin to get assistance as a temporary sitter. I'm just trying to follow up on that last question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I would say to the participant who mentioned as a temporary sitter, because that's the only part of it that I can see in the chat, who mentioned as a temporary sitter, how can I reach out for assistance? I would say that really one of the best places to start is by reaching out to the child's school and contacting the child's teacher or the administration or support staff at the school. And if additional assistance is needed from there, then they can direct you on who to contact.
There's also a question regarding, is this going to be available because somebody logged in late? And it's just a reminder that we are recording every single event or presentation every night, and it will be available to all via recording, a video that everyone can access.
So I see another question came in from Diana that she's trying to access the survey. So I'm wondering, they just keep getting the same message. So maybe Daryl can connect or somehow connect with this person after to try to get the survey completed. I'm not sure what the issue, they just said they keep clicking on the same option and trying to get in past the sign in.
So I just reached out to the person, asked them to share their contact information with me.
Perfect.
There may be more than a couple of people experiencing that issue though. So I'm a little bit concerned about making sure that maybe we'll launch that survey again to all participants tonight?
And also want to add that there on the flyer, if you receive the flyer, there's a contact number and an email address for you to reach out to. So if an event that you try to complete the survey, you wasn't able to, you can contact the person that's listed on the flyer. And that person is Monica Lopez, who's actually is on the call this evening. So her email address. And I know, Monica, you want to leave your email address in the chat for those who are unable to complete the survey, and we make sure that you guys get a t-shirt. Because I can only use one t-shirt. So we got plenty to give out. So we certainly want you guys to have the t-shirt. You will be the first to get a t-shirt. So there's no other t-shirts like this in the world. Yeah, and that's a guarantee. If you find another one, I don't know where you got it from, but this is a real authentic Celebrating Ability 5th Anniversary 2021 t-shirt.
Perfect. And then just as a reminder, again, please come back and join us on Friday night. And then we ask that if you pick up your t-shirt, that you will wear it with us on Friday night. So we are looking for some unity, again, as we celebrate and close out the week. But again, we want you here with us every night this week at 5:30. So we thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we wish you safety, health, and good wellness. Take good care and good night.
I see one more question in the chat. Could someone help me a little bit? Is it about a speaking calculator? Or not in the chat, in the Q&A? Elsa or Monica, are you able to see that? I think, where can I find for my child the calculator or the something to read with the words to read?
Do you want me to put that in the chat? Monica, I don't know if you're able to see the Q&A. So the question in the bottom is in Spanish. If you can unmute.
I'm sorry. They wanted to know how can get the tool to support like a calculator or the pen to read.
Oh, the pen, yeah. So all those, what needs to happen, and hopefully our interpretation is still on. What would need to happen is that the team, the IEP team, would address that need and then determine if the need indicated that that tool would be supportive going forward. And then the team, for some of those things, it may be an in-house issue where your school is taking care of it. There are some times where things get loaned out from a district loan process. There's not a ton more that I'm able to.
The interpreter is not in the Spanish room. The interpreter is in a room.
Shoot. Okay, so maybe I'll try and type something and do the best I can at.
Alberto, are you translating? Yeah, I was thinking. Yeah, he's taking care of that. Oh, Eric, if you can repeat it, please.
Repeat it. Okay, so I appreciate the question. What will happen is the team itself will look at the student need and then determine if there is a correlating tool that goes with it. So it could be that is determined that that's something that will help the child going forward with the expectations. Once that is determined, then it may be something that comes from the school itself. Sometimes the schools have these devices, and there are some times that the school is able to borrow in a loan process from the district, but it does have to be determined through the IEP that it is an essential need. So that's step one, and then the ball kind of gets rolling from there.
I'm wondering if the parent wants to know where to purchase one for personal use or for a home. They're asking where they can purchase one of those calculators and one of those reading pens.
Oh, I see. The reading pen that was shown is called a live scribe pen. Live scribe is one word, and I could maybe type that in. And what's the other part of the question? Is it just how to have something, the reading, the calculator?
Yeah, the voice calculator.
Is sometimes those are even available in like a larger pharmacy, because it could be also for someone who's an elderly or aging person who's having trouble seeing the screen. There are times when you can actually find those even at a pharmacy. Otherwise, I would say just do an online search. But I'm going to type in that little chat area the live scribe pen, which is the specific picture of the pen that we have. There's a couple different versions, but I'll put it in the regular chat too in case the Q&A is.
Okay, well, once again, I think we've answered all of our questions, and any others that we were not able to get to, then we will make sure that we, again, compile all of the questions that we found in the chat and leave responses to those on the webpage that I mentioned earlier. So thanks again for everyone so much for joining us this evening, and we hope to see you back here tomorrow night.